Today, I'm going to give you guys 6 wide receivers you can draft that'll make you look like a fantasy genius this upcoming season. I did running backs a couple of days ago. Make sure you check that one out. I'll have it linked in the description at the corner of your screen. Just like with the running backs, every receiver in this video is currently available after the first 2 rounds, so you have value in all these guys, and I definitely think they can all outperform their ADPs this season. So we're going to jump right in with a player I'm willing to die on a hill for this offseason, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison currently has an ADP of about 29. He's being drafted as a wide receiver 16 in PPR, so that makes him an early to mid third round pick in most drafts. As a rookie last summer, Marvin Harrison was being drafted in the late first, early second round pick in fantasy drafts after being labeled as the best wide receiver prospect entering the NFL since Calvin Johnson. So obviously with all that hype and the high pick investment that came with him, he was a major letdown in fantasy, finishing as a wide receiver 30 in PPR last year. It didn't help that fellow rookie receivers like BTJ, Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey were all top 13 PPR receivers. But let me tell y'all something. The Arizona Cardinals drafted Marvin Harrison 4th overall over all the other elite receivers in last year's class for a really good reason. In his final 2 years at Ohio State, he was averaging 9.6 receptions, 164.9 receiving yards, and nearly 2 receiving touchdowns a game while garnering the entire opposing defense's attention every single week. The Cardinals are determined to get their passing game going this season with Kyler Murray, and Marvin Harrison is going to be at the center of all of that. Because outside of Trey McBride at tight end, there aren't any X-factor receivers on this team that can take over a game like Marvin Harrison can. And we need to remember, before CeeDee Lamb was the wide receiver 1 in 2023 or even the wide receiver 5 in 2022, he was the wide receiver 19 in 2021. And as a rookie, he finished as the wide receiver 24. So I fully expect Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison to have a more potent connection in his second year. And if Marvin Harrison is available for me anywhere in the 3rd round, I'm going to be taking him. And I highly recommend you be targeting him too. There's legit top 10 wide receiver potential here. And I think this is the last summer we can enjoy a discounted price with Marvin Harrison because I'm a firm believer he's going to be a top 8, top 10 pick next year in fantasy drafts. All right, so next on this list, we have DJ Moore. DJ Moore currently has an ADP of about 41, and he's being drafted as a wide receiver 23 in PPR. So that puts him right at that 3rd, 4th round turnaround. DJ Moore was a wide receiver 16 last season on a struggling offense with the rookie quarterback out in Chicago. But in his first year as a Bear, we saw him finish as a wide receiver 6 in PPR with Justin Fields as his quarterback. So we've seen DJ Moore ball out his entire career no matter who's been on the quarterback carousel he's gone through, both in Carolina and Chicago. And to be frank, he's seen a lot of bad quarterbacks throw him the ball. But next season, the Bears have Ben Johnson coming in. We all know what Ben Johnson brings. And we have Caleb Williams entering his sophomore year. And it's not crazy to say that we should expect Caleb Williams to be more efficient and a better passer of the ball in the NFL next year. So DJ Moore can be used very similarly, in my opinion, to what Amon-Ra St. Brown was used with Ben Johnson in Detroit. And under Ben Johnson, Amon-Ra finished as a wide receiver 3 in PPR both last year and the year before that. So the ceiling is extremely high for DJ Moore with Ben Johnson now in Chicago. And he has legit top 12 to top 14 potential. And he's currently going amongst guys like Jameson Williams, Devonta Smith, George Pickens. And yeah, all these are really talented receivers, but I don't think any of these guys have the potential to be top 20 receivers in fantasy this year, considering they're not even the top targets on their team. So when you're getting a legit wide receiver 1 like DJ Moore in the 4th round on what should be a pretty efficient offense next year, you hop on that upside for sure. So real quick, you're already at an advantage this upcoming fantasy season by being here with me on Yam Talks, but let me help you even more. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be dropping my fantasy football draft guide to the public. As a computer scientist, I've created advanced AI and machine learning models on top of like countless hours of research that could give you that winning edge this upcoming season. My guide will have all of my rankings, notes, projections, and so much more. You can pre-order your guide at a discounted price by emailing me or messaging me on X today. I'll have all the information in the description. The price you pay today is the price you lock in for the rest of your life. So next summer, as I increase the price for my guide, as my channel grows, as I introduce new models, you always pay what you pay today. So with all that out the way, we're going to jump back to the list. And the third receiver you can steal in drafts this year is a rookie, and that's Panthers wide receiver Tenaroa McMillan. He currently has an ADP around 50, and he's being drafted as a wide receiver 28, which makes him a fifth-round pick. And while T-Mac may be a fifth-round pick in fantasy, he was not a fifth-round pick in real life. The Panthers, a team who's just had one of the worst defensive seasons in the history of the NFL, drafted T-Mac 8th overall and had him as their number one player on their board the entire draft process over all of the elite defensive prospects that were out there. Not only that, but Bryce Young verbally stated to this front office that he wants T-Mac to be on this team after they quietly were working out together throughout the spring. So T-Mac is 6'4". He gives the Panthers a guy who can get up there and catch everything. And with this kind of like build and everything with him, he's the prototypical wide receiver you should be targeting in fantasy drafts. He's an elite receiver who's expected to receive the lion's share of targets on this offense first team under Dave Canales with an emerging young quarterback. And if we've learned anything over these last few years with receivers, it's a high volume of targets equals elite fantasy production. And we saw this just last year with another rookie in Malik Neighbors, who just had this exact formula last year and finished as a wide receiver 6 up in New York. So if you need any evidence of McMillan's ability to dominate, he had 4 touchdowns and 304 receiving yards in a single game last year at Arizona. So last point with McMillan is that while this Panthers defense has improved a bit this offseason, I don't think they're going to be good still next year. And that's going to force Bryce Young to go out there and put up points for this team to have any chance to win games. And McMillan's going to be in the center of all of that. So think the Bengals and Joe Burrow last year. They were in the same boat with an atrocious defense. And yeah, Bryce Young is not Joe Burrow. But between weeks 12 and 18 last year, Bryce Young was a quarterback 5 in all of fantasy. And between weeks 16 and 18, he was the quarterback 2, only behind Joe Burrow. So there is potential here in Carolina with Bryce Young. And there is real potential for McMillan to be a top 18 receiver in his rookie season. So next we move on to a player in Tampa Bay, staying in the NFC South, and that's Chris Godwin. So Chris Godwin currently has an ADP of 62, making him the wide receiver 35 and a 5th, 6th round pick. So prior to suffering a season-ending injury last year in Week 7, he was averaging 19.7 PPR points a game. That put him on pace to finish as the wide receiver 2 in all of fantasy. Even if he missed some games, even if he slowed down a bit, he no doubt would have been a wide receiver 1 last year in fantasy. So the Bucs just rewarded him with a 3-year, $66 million extension this summer, and supposedly the Patriots offered him $30 million a year. So what this tells me is that NFL medical personnel don't have serious concern about further related injuries to what he had last year. And if they aren't worried, I ain't worried. So you can currently snag Godwin as your 2nd or 3rd receiver in the middle of your drafts, where he's giving you legit top 16 upside on a really solid Tampa Bay offense. And I don't think he's going to be averaging nearly 20 points a game like last year, because this wide receiver room is stacked already with Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. And now you're adding Emeka Egbuka, who's another really talented wide receiver. But Chris Godwin is still elite. He's getting paid like an elite receiver. And he's an absolute steal in drafts right now for where he is going. And then the 5th wide receiver for this video is Ricky Pearsall. So Slick Rick currently has an ADP of 75, making him the wide receiver 42 and a 7th or 8th round pick in fantasy drafts. Let me put it this way. The number 1 wide receiver on a Shanahan offense is being drafted as the wide receiver 42. The Niners offense currently has an identity crisis at wide receiver, with Brandon Ayuk still recovering from a brutal torn ACL and a torn MCL. Deebo Samuel just got shipped off, and outside of George Kittle, the only viable option last year was Juwan Jennings. And no disrespect to Juwan Jennings, who just came off a career year, but he's a 7th round receiver who topped 420 yards for the first time in his career last year. So the Niners drafted Pearsall in the 1st round last year for his crisp route running and steady hands we saw at Florida. I was really high on Pearsall coming into last year's draft. And my guy, Slick Rick, was shot in the chest, which caused him to miss all of training camp and half his rookie year, which is so crucial for an NFL rookie. But he still came in and balled at the end of the year. In his last 2 games, he dropped 28.7 and 18.9 PPR points, and it looked like he was heating up and looked like a true first-round wide receiver. So the Niners have the easiest schedule in the league by a mile this season, and they're projected to win 11 to 12 games according to Vegas. And you have a healthy Brock Purdy returning, who's also projected to throw for like 3,600 yards next year. So you can't do much better in the middle of your drafts at wide receiver than this guy right here. He has the potential to outperform his current wide receiver 42 standing by at least 20 spots, especially in PPR. And then finally, we have Patriots rookie Kyle Williams. So I wanted to provide you all with a guy you can take at the end of your draft, similar to what I did in the running backs video. And looking at the crop of receivers here in the last 4 to 6 rounds of drafts, this is a player who I think is worth taking a gamble on. He currently has an ADP of about 130, making him the wide receiver 60 and about an 11th round pick. So pretty low investment here. But the Pats are expected to take a step forward next year under Vrabel, or this year now under Vrabel. They're currently favorites to win in 11 of their 17 games according to Vegas. So if that's going to happen, there's going to be games where Drake May's going to have to air the ball out. And the bottom line is Drake May does not have much receiving help on this team. He didn't have it last year. And as things stand right now, I can't confidently say that that problem was fixed by bringing in Mac Hollins and Stephon Diggs. But what I can tell you is that the Pats drafted Kyle Williams in the 3rd round, who had 1,200 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns last year. And boy, is he explosive and he is fast. So similar to T-Mac in Carolina with Bryce Young, Kyle Williams has the potential to be the number 1 target for Drake May by midseason and command a large number of targets. So that upside is absolutely worth banking on at the end of your drafts. And again, a really low investment, high reward type of player. So those are the 6 receivers I think you should be targeting this year to potentially be league winners and give you starting guys throughout your drafts after the first 2 rounds. Keep an eye out for my quarterbacks and tight end video over the next few days. Check out the running back video, and I'm going to be pumping out a lot of content this summer, so please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch y'all later.